Imagine living in a city gripped by fear, where the sound of footsteps outside your window at night sends chills down your spine. It's 1918, New Orleans, a place of jazz, vibrant culture, and the looming shadow of a brutal killer. This is the terrifying tale of the Axeman of New Orleans, a faceless monster who carved his way through a city and disappeared without a trace. With each new attack, the citizens of New Orleans grew more paranoid, barricading their homes and clutching their loved ones tighter each night. But who was this elusive figure, and what was his motive? The Axeman of New Orleans was no ordinary killer. Eyewitnesses who survived his attacks described a tall, shadowy figure who struck under the cover of darkness. Yet, his exact appearance remains as mysterious as his motive. His method was as bizarre as it was terrifying. He didn't break windows or pick locks. Instead, he used a chisel to carve a hole in the doors of his victims' homes, sliding the panels open silently. And then, with an axe he either brought or found at the scene, he would strike. The Axeman often targeted Italian-American grocers, leading some to believe he harbored a grudge against these small business owners. But why? Was it racism, revenge, or something even darker? The horror began in May 1918, with the brutal attack on Joseph and Catherine Maggio, Italian grocers found slain in their own home. The police arrived to find a scene so brutal, it seemed almost unreal. Joseph and Catherine had been attacked in their sleep. No alarms, no warning, just the silence of death. As days turned to weeks, the Axeman struck again and again. With each murder, he left no fingerprints, no clues, only devastated families and a trail of fear that wound through the streets of New Orleans. Over the next year, he attacked at least a dozen people, leaving some dead and others scarred for life. And the more he struck, the more his legend grew. The city was paralyzed with fear, wondering when and where the Axeman would strike next. People were terrified. They took drastic measures, installing locks, barricading windows, even staying up all night, clutching weapons. But the Axeman didn't seem to care. He was unstoppable, elusive, and as terrifyingly unpredictable as a shadow in the night. If the Axeman's attacks hadn't already terrified the city, his next move would push New Orleans to the edge. On March 13, 1919, a letter arrived at the offices of a local newspaper, supposedly penned by the Axeman himself. The letter was chilling, its words seemingly from a demon sent straight from the hottest hell. In the letter, the Axeman wrote, "I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have mentioned." The city was in a frenzy. Jazz music echoed from nearly every home and bar in New Orleans that night as people scrambled to comply, hoping to avoid his wrath. Some later described the night as an eerie, chaotic celebration, New Orleans itself dancing with death. The police were desperate for answers. Despite the Axeman's chilling letter and repeated attacks, investigators had almost nothing to go on. Each crime scene was left meticulously clean of clues. The Axeman seemed to vanish into thin air after every attack. With no solid evidence, the city was left to speculate. Some believed he was connected to the Italian mafia, possibly a hitman sent to target Italian-American grocers who defied mob control. Others thought he was a crazed jazz enthusiast, some kind of deranged spirit compelled by the music. After all, who else would demand that an entire city play jazz to spare their lives? There were also theories that he suffered from a mental illness, driving him to murder at random. In a time when mental health was poorly understood, such an idea only stoked the fear further, making him seem more monstrous and unpredictable. But as the city continued to speculate, the Axeman remained as silent as ever, watching from the shadows, leaving New Orleans to guess his next move. And then, just as suddenly as he appeared, the Axeman was gone. His final attack took place in October 1919, leaving yet another family shattered. But after that night, he vanished, leaving behind only questions and shattered lives. Was he caught? Did he die? Or did he simply move on to another city, another life, leaving New Orleans to forever wonder? Today, over a century later, the Axeman remains one of the most enduring mysteries of New Orleans. With each retelling, the legend grows, as chilling and unsolved as it was back then. Who was he really? And what drove him to kill? The mystery, like the man himself, may never be revealed. Was the Axeman a man, a monster, or something else entirely? Tell us your theories in the comments. And if you want to dive into more haunting mysteries and chilling unsolved cases, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay safe and keep your doors locked. Long after the Axeman vanished, his legend continued to cast a shadow over New Orleans. For decades, his story has been whispered in the city's bars and alleyways, retold as a ghost story, a boogeyman tale, and a grim reminder of the horrors humans are capable of. The Axeman has become more than just a killer. He's a fixture in the darker folklore of New Orleans. His story blends mystery, fear, and the spirit of jazz, captivating imaginations around the world. Books, movies, and even TV shows have been inspired by the Axeman's story, adding layers to his legend while continuing to ask the same haunting questions. Who was he? Why did he kill? And why did he stop? With today's advancements in criminology and forensic science, many have tried to re-examine the Axeman case. Could DNA analysis or modern profiling finally provide answers? So far, the answers remain elusive, but the theories are endless. Some believe he may have been a soldier returning from World War I, carrying trauma that manifested in horrific violence. Others speculate he was an early example of a spree killer, whose rage burned out just as quickly as it ignited. Local historians keep the story alive, piecing together new bits of information and attempting to solve the mystery that even the city's most experienced detectives couldn't crack. But for every theory, there's still one haunting fact. No one knows for certain. The Axeman of New Orleans is more than an unsolved case. He's a chilling reminder of the unknown. In a city famous for its vibrant life and deep, dark mysteries, he remains the ultimate question mark, a faceless shadow lurking in history. As long as New Orleans lives, so too will the story of the Axeman. Perhaps even a century later, he's still out there, hiding in the music, in the fog, or maybe just in our imaginations. Or maybe he was never there at all. So what do you think? Was the Axeman a lone madman, a mob hitman, or something even more sinister? Let us know your theories in the comments. Who knows, maybe one of you holds the missing piece? If you love unsolved mysteries, eerie legends, and spine-chilling true crime, be sure to subscribe and join our community of mystery lovers. We dive into the world's darkest stories, and who knows, maybe we'll solve the next one together.